In case of some of you that are here for the first time, I'll briefly explain the main concept behind this event, which is to enhance connections within our community, to make these moments a virtual and informal place where DESIS Lab can meet and talk about their activities, their research projects they are developing or have developed, share good practices and some difficulties that we all have. All the community will experience a kind of a DESIS tour for which they are invited to share their activities and thoughts about social innovation. I would like to remember you all that this is a place to talk informally, and the idea is to share some ideas or just to have a coffee together and chat about life as friends do when they join in a cafe. Please consider to host the next ones at your DESIS Lab. And if you decide to do that, just drop us a line or let us know by email. I would also like to thank Jose, Marianne, and Cristobal who stepped forward to host this DESIS Café. And I hope today we have the opportunity to learn more about Laboratorio de Innovación Pública at Pontificia Universidad Católica de Chile. I would also like to highlight that LIPUC are a new member, and we are really curious to see the projects they are developing. I would also like to welcome some of our new members, Frugal Design DESIS Lab from Bangalore in India, Nova DESIS Lab from Nova School of Business and Economics in Lisbon in Portugal. We have another new DESIS Lab also in Portugal, Redes DESIS Lab from Faculty of Architecture at the University of Lisbon. As the DESIS Lab from Escola Superior de Diseño de Aragón in Zaragoza, Spain, and Project DESIS Group from Université de Nîmes in France. I would also like to welcome some. Shall I continue? Okay, so you are all welcome to the network. I would like to say that we have now 64 labs around the world. In other news, we hope to share with you soon a new DESIS website, but in the meantime, keep sharing with us your events and news for us to disseminate within the network. And now I'm not going to take much more of your time. I am now letting Marianne and Jose be your hosts, and I hope we have a very fruitful session. Please feel free to participate, raise your hand and open the mic so we can have a nice talk instead of just writing in the chat. We can have a talk while we have our coffee. So Mariana and Jose, you are now the hosts.
Gracias. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Teresa.
Thank you.
Maybe we'll start by introducing ourselves. My name is Mariana Fulgueiras. I am the lead coordinator for research at the Laboratorio de Innovación Pública. I am Peruvian, but I've been living in Chile for almost 10 years. So now I call this my home. And I'm here with Jose Alard, Fernanda Torres, Antonio Fava, and Daniela Bianchi from our team. Cristobal Tello, who's our director, couldn't join us today, and Sara Kundaider, because they're both at a hospital in one of the projects that we'll show you later on. So very, very happy to be with you today, and thank you for joining us. Jose?
Yes, thank you very much. It's a pleasure, it's an honor to be here. For many years, we have been trying to become member of DESIS, perhaps because, well, many reasons. We have been very busy, but also the kind of work that our laboratory is doing is perhaps a little different of many of the DESIS laboratory or at least we used to know. So, and then I must say that Teresa has been also super important in simplifying the process. So thank you very much for having us and for accepting us as part of this fantastic network. I see many friends in the chat, so I'm super glad to be sharing with you this coffee. Today we're supposed to introduce you what we do in our laboratory of public innovation at Pontificia Universidad Católica de Chile. I know it's very complicated, so we better call it LIP, LIP UC. I left in the chat the website so you can check later all the projects we are doing. I don't know if you want to present, Mariana, the slides so we can start.
Yes.
I would like to do a special hello to my dear Professor Ezio Mancini. I was just telling before that we have a long relation with Teresa, thanks to Ezio. We both were at the PhD at Politecnico Milan with our master. So it's fantastic to being able to present to our professor. Okay, LEAP UCE. What is LEAP? LEAP is a very interesting joint venture between the School of Design at Pontificia Universidad Católica de Chile in Santiago with the Center of Public Policy. That makes it completely odd, different, and it gives to this laboratory a very particular identity. We're basically designers that work with lawyers, with social experts, with Mariana herself. She came from the social studies. I'm a designer. Our director is a lawyer. So it's a very interesting, and this has to do with something very particular. The role universities still play in countries such as Chile are still very crucial. Universities has a very important role and connection with public institutions. They support, and the state also asks a lot of support from universities to do public policies and to implement some policies. So we realized that at the School of Design, we had a lot of projects, a lot of creativity from students and from faculty members that didn't have necessarily the impact that we wanted them to have. Very, very interesting projects regarding design for social innovation, applying a lot of the techniques that most of DESIS Labs use for doing their projects with communities. But most of the time, those projects didn't scale or didn't have the impact that we saw they could have. So at the same time, the Center for Public Policy, well, perhaps Mariana can tell a little bit more about it, but they really work trying to connect public policy with studies, with a lot of research, with trying to brief congressmen and about problems, public problems, complex problems. So we realized that perhaps if we join together, we could have even more impact. So, and at the same time, we realized that the states are not, or governments are not really good in innovating. So we started this 9.5 years ago, and we can say very proudly that we are doing a lot of things, very interesting things, and we are finally having impact, especially in our society. Let me see if I have something else to say. Perhaps we can, yes, we can come to this slide. Mariana, please feel free to interrupt me. So why we thought it is necessary to innovate in the public sector? We realized that there's a loss of legitimacy in public institutions. This is probably common worldwide. The need to strengthen confidence level based on advance in transparency and probity. Innovation as a mechanism to rebuild the relation between state and citizens, putting the needs of people at the center, and increasing complexity of problems to be solved. At the same time, the public budget have diminished. So there's a lot of pressure to do more with less. And increasingly, people expect the public service to be as good as they get from the private sector. You could say that probably we are doing the same thing Nesta or the Mind Lab were doing some years ago, and they're still doing. But let me tell you that things are a little bit different in countries such as Chile. Probably the status quo in many governmental institutions don't let them really think about innovation or applying design to social services. So what we think is our contribution as a laboratory in the public service. We have a methodology focused on the user. of the service in citizens, a bottom-up approach, although we also realize that it's also very important to consider the top-down approach. So it's, I think LEAP is in between these two approaches. Incorporation of actors not traditionally considered in the design of public services. Possibility of co-creation of services between citizens, civil society, officials, and authorities, and an iterative process using rapid prototype that allows the test ideas before its implementation. I'm reading because I can talk a lot, so it's better if I read these 3 slides, and then Mariana is going to be much more fun than me. And probably this is interesting. The challenge for design innovation in the public services. These are some things that we have realized after almost 10 years working between citizens and public services. There's a lack of knowledge in the public sector about the field of design and the possibility it brings. Lack of knowledge of the designers of the public world, its rules and conditions. Many times we are a little naive about assessing some problems without considering all the complexity and conditions and legal aspect of a problem. Difficulties in assigning and estimating the value of process with its rules is a no. Lack of method and culture of impact measurement in the designers, the main indicators to gain the confidence of government. So sometimes we're really bad in having or raising KPIs or objective data. So that's very important. And public sector culture does not promote or reward innovation. So after this very boring introduction, but perhaps you can read them later in the presentation. We can leave it. I leave with you Mariana Fulgueira, who is going to tell you a little bit more of what and how we are doing. One more thing, when we start the LEAP, we have the chance to receive a mission from the Design Council. This was, as I told you, almost 10 years ago. And they support us a lot, trying to give us some instrument tools of how to introduce these issues into governmental institutions. And it is good to mention them because they were really supportive at the time, and they gave us a lot of methodologies and tools, and with the time we were able also to not only assume those techniques and tools, but also improve them or hacking those tools. And Mariana is also going to talk a little bit about that, the process.
Thank you, Jose, and thank you, everybody. Well, basically, this is a graphic display of our methodology, not very creative or not very innovative. You see, it's the double diamond. But as Jose said, basically through time, what we realized is that we were missing a third diamond because public policy plays out in implementation more than in design. Things never go as you plan, and people never do what they say, and things never happen how you scheduled them or how you budget them. So in all honesty, actually, now if we probably should change the diagram because the third diamond should be even bigger. Yeah, we've focused a lot of our efforts and a lot of the sort of time we spend thinking about how to doing new things and doing things in a new way, focusing on that third diamond, in which we've tried to develop methods and approaches to piloting and to scaling. Yeah, and that's I think what we've been focusing on the last 3 to 4 years, and probably where we've been where our biggest challenges ahead lie as well. Yeah, but of course we really thank both the mentorship we received from the Design Council initially, and also this logic of divergence and convergence, which I think adds a lot of value to the public sector, especially because the divergence and convergence tends to flow a little bit more natural in the social sector, among social organizations within universities. People are used to brainstorming, to thinking outside the box, and then choosing and narrowing down decisions. But in the public sector, everything you get asked to do is for yesterday, and everything is late and everything is urgent. It doesn't matter what it is or when it is happening. So people tend to not give themselves time to think about a lot, to diverge. Yeah, they want to converge, they want to find a solution, they want the solution to be proven, to be technical, to be effective and easy to communicate. And so inviting public servants to join in a process of convergence and divergence is truly revolutionary, as much as it might not seem so for the people who are joining us today, because you probably all constantly doing this and you think this is probably the only way to do things, you know, to diverge and converge, whatever methodology it is you apply. But in the public sector, as I can say, just the thought of pausing to redefine the problem you're facing is already quite revolutionary. Yeah, we try to work around these three principles, which the first of which is to under the understanding that things are co-produced, that citizens are an essential part of providing public services and thus must be also a part of designing them. We believe in the power of co-creation. Specifically, we believe deliberation, that production of new ideas based on the ideas people bring to the table is really potent and can change, not only resulting in better designs, but also increasing trust, increasing trust between people, which is a backbone for society, for whatever it is we're doing. And we believed in shared learning, which means we try to design based on evidence, but also on experience, because there are different types of authorship, of specialty, yeah, and sometimes the people who don't have the academic credentials, who don't have the academic studies, do have the real world experience and are connected to the issues you confront in ways that are very deep, very profound, and very meaningful. So we believe in the power of learning together. Yeah, we've also kind of understood, as we've gone along our journey in trying to figure out what it is that we do, that innovation is not just an outcome. And this in this we read Christian Silos and Johanna Mayer from Christian Silos works at the Stanford Social Review, and Johanna Mayer works in Berlin at Hay. And they have a fantastic book called Scaling for Impact, which was very meaningful for us in the sense of sort of enlightening us in that innovation has value not just because the results are innovative or are better or are fairer or more just or more effective, but also in the innovation process, what actually really matters is that you learn from what you're doing. But that doesn't come naturally. Yeah, you have to create the space, and you have to design it. You have to design the learning process into the innovation process. Yeah. So we've been working a lot on that, on trying to open up spaces for reflection, for shared learning, so that the reflection is not only at the hands of the team who's designing, but rather it's a community effort. It's an effort of all the actors that are involved. And we believe that we truly believe in iteration and the coming and going of ideas, of processes, even of solutions as they change and they mutate while things happen. Yeah. This has led us also using the work of Silos and Mayer and also the work of others. We crossed the three diamonds with the logic of uncertainty and of seeing the design process, especially in the public sector, but I think it applies everywhere, as a process of reducing uncertainty. And we think this is very important, because what happened to us when we first approached trying to solve public problems through design methods, through innovation, and through an innovation lens, our counterparts in government always were asking us about the certainties. Yes, yeah. How do you know this works, and what will happen, and what are we going to do? And the main thing we said to them was, well, we don't know what's the solution. We have a very good way of finding out. but you have to trust us. and essentially, that's not a very good selling pitch, for any government organization. They don't want you to tell them that that they have to trust you, and so basically, we've been trying to, since the first meeting we had and the first door that closed, because we faced many closed doors in our almost 10 years, we've been trying to explain why this works, why they need to trust us, and we think they should, and we still think they should. And it's because what we offer is a process of reducing uncertainty through collective learning. The design process is a process in which, through bringing people together and through applying a structured way of allowing different voices and different methods to interpret reality, you can learn about the different aspects that constitute a solution, especially a solution thinking about how government works and how governments, provide services to people. And so what we try to work when we start our projects is around managing uncertainty in 6 different dimensions, the definition of the problem or the need. So basically, are we right? Or is this a problem for someone? Or is there an opportunity? Do people agree with what we're positing as a problem? About the solution or the solutions, the different alternatives there are to managing or facing that need or that problem or that opportunity. The identity, which means the organization that is best tailored to deal with that issue in particular. A lot of the times what we realize is that there's organizations that come up with an idea, but they're not the best suited to implement it. But that's hard to understand. That's hard to realize because it's your baby, it's your project. You want to go through to the end. But sometimes you're not the one who should, because someone else is in a better position. Maybe it's a community, maybe it's a different government body, maybe it's another university, maybe it's another think tank. It depends on the issue. For the fourth uncertainty, which is about the adoption of the solutions by the people who are who this is thought for, and with. The fifth, which is a big one, is the management, and the management tends to be kind of sidelined when you're in the first and the second diamond, because when you're designing, you don't really have to think about all the little things, But when you're piloting, you realize that that psychologist you needed, that he or she doesn't exist in the territory where you're working, That the money the fuel price hikes, and then you don't have enough money to afford the bus tickets to bring people to and from. It's the kind of menial little things that people tend to not want to think about, but are crucial for implementation. And then you have consequences, and consequences can be positive, of course, but they can also be unforeseen and negative. And we believe that we have the responsibility to monitor and reflect upon all the consequences that our interventions have on the different people that they touch and that they interact with. So that's kind of what where we design from, and we're thinking at the moment, or where we're trying to work around 3 main things. We are trying to develop a collaborative learning framework for during the process of design and implementation. How can you reflect collectively upon what you're doing and translate that reflection into change? That's a big thing for us right now. We're thinking about scaling into full-fledged policy and its implications. We have quite a few projects who are now at that point, at that breaking point, from going from pilots into public policy. And of course, we're confronted with new issues. And we're also, and as everybody else, but which is not easy to solve, thinking about how you take a systemic approach to these issues when different public systems coincide, collapse, overlap, and relate once and to the other. So that's kind of what we're thinking about now. I don't know if anybody has any questions so far. I don't want to be too boring. So if you have questions, please just interrupt me. We're going to now do a really quick overview on some of our projects, and then I'll focus on one or two. This is to let you know the topics that we're into, and so that if you're into the same things, we would love to hear from you and things you've developed. We work on public services. We have a project called Redactiva Active Network, which works towards improving the mobility of the elderly, through implementing a series of infrastructure improvements that are activated by a band, like a Fitbit type of thing, which people can use at the municipal level. We have been working since 2018, and we keep on working, and we devote a lot of our time and efforts towards a topic which is huge in Chile, which are the waiting lists for public healthcare access. Chile has over 2 million people waiting for medical provisions, and some of the people on the waiting list have been waiting for 7 or 8 years, even more. And we've developed a attention model for public hospitals, which has been proved to reduce the waiting list on almost 50% in a year, and improves the productivity of doctors, and also improves the experience and the journey from the patient's point of view. And I'll go a little bit more into this project later, because it's one of our big projects and one of the ones that is kind of making us think about scale. We've worked developing local childhood office management system. I'll show this graph in more detail later, because this was crazy. When we realized how complicated this sector was, we realized there's a lot to do in how the government reaches people with the services and provisions that it has available. We've worked on developing better systems for people to get housing permits through the Ministry of Housing and Development, standardizing and taking online processes that are very complex and that tend to take a lot of time. We've rethought the public infrastructure in the way of kiosks. We redesigned the logic, the services that kiosks provide to the community, and also its infrastructure for one of the municipalities here. We've worked with Foundation for Innovation in Agriculture. We learned so much from this project and from the work that the FAO, FAO is doing from the United Nations in how to think about knowledge and innovation systems for agriculture and rural settings, and we learned a lot from that. We worked with the Ministry of Social Development doing an open innovation process for the design of new public policy called Innovafosis, which we also learned an incredible amount from. And we've worked in improving the national call for art, for the funding for the arts, which is Fondat here in Chile. And we have many others, but I don't want to bore you. So as you can see, we are generalists in the sense that we take on different topics, but we are always interested in challenge, in things that have been proved to not work before, and things that need to coordinate or help work together. Lots of very different stakeholders and people from different comes of life. So that's kind of like our motivation in order to select projects and work on them. And then something that happened to us, we didn't expect, we weren't trying for this to happen, but this kind of happened to us. We didn't make it happen. Is that we started developing a muscle. Cristóbal calls it muscle, a muscle for dialogue. Because of course, with this amount of co-creation and this amount of co-production, we needed to talk to people. So we started kind of. I don't want to say we're experts, because I don't think we're experts, but we have a fair mileage on talking to people and helping people talk. And so we've, in the last few years, we've been called upon when someone has needed to help people talk on difficult and different issues, yeah? Probably our most interesting and also an incredible learning process for us is a project. It's called We Have to Talk About Chile. and that has the same connotation in English as in Spanish. It's like when you have to talk about something, we have to talk about Kevin. Remember that film? Very powerful film. Well, basically, We Have to Talk About Chile was an initiative that said, things are not going well. We're not getting along at the country level. Let's talk about what needs to change, what needs to remain the same. And this was framed within the context of the new constitution that's being written in Chile as a product of a huge social movement and social protests that started in the year 2019. This project helped over 1 million people talk, and also and of the 1 million people who talked in different formats and in different ways, 8,000 of them did so through meetings, 5 people meeting on a Zoom platform throughout 9 months, and this included people from every single municipality in Chile, people from every single from the social demographic that you can imagine, including people with disabilities, including people that were in prison at the time of the conversation, and including paritarian, I don't know how you say it in English, but an equal amount of men and women, of people in that come from different First Nations, amongst others. Yeah. So this was an incredible opportunity for us to test whether our methodology to help people talk actually helped everybody talk, and it worked really well, and we learned a lot from that process. And this is a whole. As LEAP, we were a small part of a much bigger team who has continued, using the results from this project in order to inform the writing of the constitution, and also just the general public discussion in Chile at the time. Yeah. This is the last thing the newest thing we've done in terms of dialogue. But before that, we had little experiences, the previews. We had an encounter, a meeting. It was a 3-day workshop with 100 indigenous women leaders indigenous women who were leaders in their communities. This was at the request of the Ministry of Social Development. It was also a very powerful experience. We did the same thing a few years before with 100 Chileans who were to represented a diversity of the country as well. That was a little preview of what We Have to Talk About Chile later became. And we've also worked in rural communities and with rural mayors, thinking about their strategies and how they are fronting different issues. Yeah. And now some examples. This is the reducing the waiting list for public health provision. Yeah, as you can see, we've applied these 9 tools. This is a blueprint. It's impossible to see in detail because it's very detailed. And the first time we showed this to the ministry, they couldn't believe it. We printed it. It was a 5-meter long sheet in a room. This was before COVID and before we couldn't see each other in person. And it was shocking to them to realize what it took to get access to a specialist in Chile if you were in the public sector. It was amazing to see the power of design. I'm not a designer, I'm an anthropologist, and truly through this project, I saw the power that design and design approaches and tools have in making intangible the experiences of people. Yeah, and in that meeting, we had citizens, we had patients, we had NGOs that work on health. We had people from the different hospitals we were working with, nurses and doctors, and everybody was there. And we had the ministry with the minister and others. And when they saw this, it dawned on them what it meant to wait for that long. Yeah, so that was just really incredible. And as incredible as it was, we don't have time to go through the details, but basically what we did was we co-designed and co-created a new way of articulating between different levels. As in many other countries in the world, the health system here has 3 levels. basic type GP type consultorios or primary care, secondary care, and tertiary care. And the problem is that these three levels in Chile don't communicate well between them, yeah, and that creates a lot of issues and problems for patients. So that's what we've been working on, and it's had some incredible results, and we're at the moment at the process of trying to make it, go boom and go everywhere. Hopefully we'll be able to do that, and we'll tell you more if we do. And this is also, this project was financed by UNICEF. They asked us, they said, well, we know that municipalities have a lot of programs that are destined for, that are targeted to children and adolescents and their families, but we don't know how many there are, and we don't know what they do, and we don't know how they work together. So we went out into the field, and we, after 250 interviews and 6 months of work, we came back with this graph, which meant it's complete mayhem. Yeah, it's ungovernable, unmanageable. There's so many programs, there's so many actors, there's so many people trying to coordinate things that basically families get thrown into this maze in which priorities between institutions are different, criteria are different, procedures are different, the recommendations and the advice you receive as a citizen are different. They can even tell you conflicting advice. So truly, we were shocked, and we were sort of very shaken into designing something that would make the experience, and most of the services are targeted to people who basically need social services, like any of us who could. But also, there's a subgroup of these programs which are targeted to children who have suffered some form of vulneration of their rights. Yeah, so it was very urgent for us to design it. So. We can't go into the solution; it's very long. We designed the system. We haven't been able to get it implemented yet. This is one of the projects in which we're still working with everybody involved, and slowly, I don't know if loving is the term, but you have to kind of build support for such a radical intervention, because what we proposed changes, it kind of puts upside down the way the government works at the municipal level. So this is something we realized, that it's what we were proposing is not easy to do. And what we've realized is that, because it has happened to us many times in the years that we've been working on this, is that things take time. Everybody kind of associates innovation with speed. I don't know why. I don't know where that came from, but they do. Everybody's kind of, oh, it's innovative. It's going to be out in like 3 months. You're going to have a radical new solution. Well, things have never taken us less than like 3 or 4 years, yeah, in order to scale, to see impact, to see, the real deal out there, not just the pretty report, which you could produce in 3 months, but to see change takes time. And it takes a lot of effort, and not only in the design and the working together, and it also takes a lot of effort in knocking doors, in talking to different people. And we have a term for it. We call it the lip sen, because sometimes we say you have to switch on your lip sen, because you have to go and hear someone say, oh, no, you can't do that. No, that's been done before. No, never. No, that's not the way to solve it. And you have to kind of sit and smile. You have to sit and smile. Sorry, someone's very insistent. You have to sit and smile and just kind of say, okay, I promise. It's okay. No, I know it's been done before. I know it doesn't work, but just try it. Let's just go for it, And after a lot of that, those kind of like meetings in which you shake your head and listen to everybody, things slowly but surely take turns, sometimes unexpected ones, and tend to work. So that's a little bit of our experience. That's our website and our contact. You can always reach to us. We would love to see what other people are doing, and hear more also about your projects, and if any of this makes sense to you. And I just like, because all the team is connected now, Fernanda, Daniela, Antonia, if you can say hello, so everybody knows.
And also Cristobal, I think, is
Cristobal also joined. I don't know. I think he's on a meeting, so I don't know if he has his camera on, but he's there. So Fernanda, if you can
Hello, everyone. My name is Fernanda. I am a researcher at the LIB, and nice to meet you and be here today with you.
And then we have Daniela. Daniela is also part of our team.
Hi, everyone. I'm Daniela. Nice to meet you all. And I'm also a researcher here at LIB. Nice to meet you all.
And Antonia. Antonia does magic with communications for us.
Hi, everyone. I'm Antonia. I'm in charge of the communication issues at LIB.
And I don't know if Cristobal, I know he's connected, but I knew he was on his way to a hospital, so I'm not sure if he's going to be able to introduce, but I'll introduce Cristobal Tello, our director, who's also there with us. Anyway, that's us. I don't know if you have questions, comments, suggestions. We're open to hear whatever it is you bring to us.
Gracias, Mariana. You are so graceful. Much more than me.
Thank you, Jose. Okay, I think the coffee was a little bit weak today because everybody's a little bit shy.
No, I was asking if someone else is going to open its mic.
I was waiting to see if there was somebody else that wanted to break the ice, but I'm very happy to do it if necessary. First of all, I have to say that also this time, as all the cafe are really very, very super interesting. And thanks to Teresa and the Teresa team to have invented it, because it's apparently very simple, but it's so successful because there are so many people telling things. So, sorry, this is a little bit something that I was thinking from a little bit, not so specific on this presentation, but it came in my mind, I think that is valuable to say, because I think that one of the issues about DESIS is that inside the DESIS lab, there is a richness in terms of experiences that is incredibly valuable. And we try with the network to create some exchange. But of course, it's not so easy. And we really need to make, only since that we have this cafe, we start to have insight in what is happening. And especially nowadays, I can tell you when we started 15 years ago, it was 15 now, no, maybe less, a little bit less. In any case, a little bit less than 15, we knew each other. Everybody knew the others practically. And now, even this lab where I know Jose since such a long time, but I did not know anything about the others. And therefore, what is happening, how it works is totally open. In any case, sorry for this thoughts in general on the hidden richness in our network. Now, what I want to say one thing that is very practical, and one thing that is a little bit more, has to be a kind of a conversation also with some, not critic, but some thoughts. So the first one is that listening to your presentation, it came immediately in my mind that this is the thesis, the discussion of the thesis of a young lady called Alice Martin in Nîmes. Nîmes is a new DESIS lab, but beyond being a new DESIS lab, this thesis is called Design and Collective, collaboration au cœur de la fabrique de la politique publique. So it means exactly what you do. So it could be extraordinarily important, and probably there are some other labs that are working in this direction. But in your case is particularly clear, and also they Nîmes have a DESIS lab that is also a public innovation lab, and therefore I will create a link tomorrow. So because I really think that it will be important to talk. And listening to you, given that I am going in 3 days in Nîmes, no, next Monday, to discuss this thesis. So I've been obliged. No, it was a very interesting reading. I've been obliged to read this thesis that is very interesting and is incredibly similar to yours one. Incredibly similar, because there is a methodological start talking about methodology, and afterward she talked about specific projects that they did. So she make the thesis on the projects, and afterward there is some beginning of a conclusion. And I like this thesis, as I like your work, because it's what for me should be done. It's project based, so it's not only theory. It's some reflection done on some project on which we are involved. And therefore, I think that is the best contribution that we can bring. And until here, well, this is the story. What I will observe that for sure, I'm going to tell you the observation that I will do to this thesis, but it came in my mind that could be similar to what I listened to you. So you started presenting a methodology, and afterward you moved telling what are the projects, and afterward you entered in the projects. So when you entered in the projects, now, sorry if I made a mistake, I have not seen anything of the methodology. So the projects are something that very correctly, in my view, you did, considering the specific conditions in which you are. After all, you can stretch and say this is the double diamond here or there. But in my view, the problem of starting from that methodological presentation, and this is exactly in your case, and in this case, they start with the double diamonds. The double could be done. There is only one condition. Maybe you had one of these conditions, but was not the example. When people decide to make an experiment of putting together in a room different people from the administration that break the normal way of working, they go together in the room, and in this room, they make a process that moves more or less from the beginning to the end. And the result is not so much. So the value is not so much the result, but it's a way to expose these people to what could be lateral thinking, to what it means to imagine some working with the different people, so interdisciplinarity. So this way of working, the only case in which I see the use of that methodology from the beginning to the end is when you create a kind of artificial environment in which you make things happen in that way. But they are in that way so artificially that at the end they are a kind of learning. So it's the good motivation to do it sometimes is because people learn and like to see what happens if you think in this way. For the rest, what happens? I'm still searching for the right way of telling the story because I've not found it yet. But there are situations. There are situations in which the designer is with other people trying to do something that is useful for all, and the designer can bring a result. For instance, in the two examples that you presented at the end, you said that what you have done, you made visible and tangible, for instance, the journey of experience in the first project. And in the second project, you made visible the complexity of some interactions. So what has been the designer role in that context, in two different contexts, is to make things visible and tangible. And we could assume that we are recognized when we do something to make things visible and tangible. And this could be, we could describe when it happens that people can have a demand of making things visible and tangible. And probably there are other specific conditions in which we can do, we now design expert can do something that can be recognized as important and in some way useful. So for me, the experience that we should do together is to represent some, I call it condition. I don't know if it makes sense. So there is a certain condition in the journey of experience of projects and the process that is very long and very complicated. You said everywhere, but in particular in the public administration, there is a way that is very complex of making things happen. And you cannot imagine to change it totally and to bring them to the modality of the double diamonds. So we have to understand conditions in which something that we can do can be useful, and to describe them. And when you said, and I will stop here, you said a phrase that was very nice, but I think that it's not the good one. When you said that you have to believe us because we will be able to reduce uncertainty. I don't know. So I could have a philosophical discussion about the reduction of uncertainty, but it's not what I want to do now. But why people should believe you? And people shall believe you when you show that you are capable to bring on the table of the conversation something that is interesting and useful. And in the moment in which you said, I use your words, when we show the journey of experience that has to be done to enter in the list of, to have some services, people recognize something that with their own tools will ever seen. And in that moment, they have not to believe you. They recognize that you are capable to do something. So, conclusion, for me, all this story is fantastic. It opened a field of action that is extremely interesting. In my view, we should, in some way, not to start our presentation always showing an abstract methodology, because I think they do not help us and do not help the other to understand what we want to do. They can become scared because they are trying to impose us a way of doing that is so far away. You have to start defining some conditions in which designer has done something useful and show. So in my view, if we are not recognized, it's simply not because the others are stupid or because we have not found the magic word, but because we have not done so much. Because if you show what you show us, if you start your presentation saying there has been a condition A, so it's not only we was working on service for care and the issue was this one. This is the topic. But to describe the condition, where was the problem? What was the specific challenge? And the way in which our contribution has helped, as in the two examples that you have presented. Sorry, maybe this was not so much an issue about cafe. It was a kind of heavy cafe, I understand. But the problem is that your presentation entered when I was reading this. It's a very heavy thesis, doctoral dissertation. So it has been more stronger than me not to tell you what I thought at that level. So I hope that this was not now freezing all the conversation. We can go back also to, some more light way of dealing with things. Thank you in any case. It was very interesting listening to you.
Yeah, thank you, Ezio. It's very interesting because a lot of the things you touched upon are things that we've sort of grasped and debated and talked within ourselves. I just, a couple of things about when I said that you have to trust us, maybe I didn't explain myself fully, but that's how we started. And it didn't work, yeah? Telling public services to trust you didn't work. And so then what we've been trying to, and we've sort of written some documents that are not especially enlightened, but have been our efforts to process and give some coherence to what we're doing, is what we've tried to is explain why things that designers do work. Yeah, why is it that making it tangible? What is the added value of that? Why you should bring people to the table, thinking that we're always sort of standing from the perspective of the government or of people who are at the government, yeah? And that's where I think it's been a really interesting sort of cohabiting between design and the social sciences in our lab, because I'm not a designer, half of the lab is not a designer and half is. And so a lot of the times, and design is a very strong discipline, but it's a very practical discipline. And so in my experience, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but designers are used to trial and error and just finding something that works. And when it works, you just go for it. Yeah. But in the social sciences, you need to understand why it works. No, people don't want to know if it works or if it doesn't work. They want to know why. And so that's what we've been kind of trying to go back and forth in our conversation, our discussion. And that's when these conditions that you mentioned, I think, also are very important, and we probably should make them clear. But that's also when I think adding some methodology and some of these fake spaces or real spaces, spaces that don't happen naturally or that wouldn't naturally be considered, can also have some value. Yeah. And that's what I was, when I mentioned that what we're thinking about and what we're working on is the fact that sometimes social processes happen either with the double, triple, or diamond, or whatever other methodology, or sometimes without any methodology. But what we've been realizing from our work is that what is incredibly helpful for everybody involved is to add a little protected space to invite people to discuss and analyze what's happening, but through a structure, because open conversation sometimes gets very frustrating for people. Yeah, because, oh, well, I learned this and you learned that and he learned that and she learned that, and it never adds up to something coherent. So people get bored of joining to reflect, because reflection seems very chaotic. Yeah. And so, and that's why we presented the uncertainties, because I didn't go into detail of how we've used them in the different projects, but they've been very, very, very valuable for us in order to give some structure to spaces within social processes that have allowed us to then make collective decisions, but not based on in Chile we say pincada, like just my feeling or my gut feeling, but rather based on a sort of systematic way of working together. And I think probably, and I will completely change the way I present in order to make sure that this can be seen through the cases, but which we're terrible at doing. We never know how to do that. But because it's been very valuable to us, even in processes that haven't followed so strictly the conditions, the real conditions, but even in chaotic processes, adding those protected spaces have been very valuable to us and to others. So we kind of tested it in our processes, but have also shared this methodology with others, and it's been useful for them as well. So I think maybe there's a lot of work still to be done, and thinking how we can sort of make that a useful tool for people to work together in a different way than they're used to, especially in a context like Chile, but I think most countries that we come from are facing different, similar issues of trust. And so when you have a sort of like a huge sort of collapse of public trust between citizens and government, and between citizens and social organizations, sort of creating spaces that promote sort of horizontal listening is not easy, but can add a lot of value. So that's what we're trying to do, and we make an effort to put it in within the projects. But next time I promise that I'll make the examples follow in those in how that was done. I don't know if anybody else has.
Nico, do you want to open your mic? I saw that you have written something in the chat.
Oh, just thinking loud. I found all this very interesting. For me, the DESIS Cafe are an opportunity to learn new things, So I'm a little bit surprised with myself that I still have that appetite to learn new things, but nevertheless. So Chile, was it right? I was just thinking about another social innovation lab, but I think that one is in Peru, and some of you may have heard of it. The name is not in my mind now, and they devote a fair bit of time before they get into their methodology to work towards some solution. Nevertheless, they have a very ethnographic approach to their work. So they will go and stay with the community for a while and just listen, hear, do, spend a significant amount of time to not only, and I called it in the chat, pure ethnography. They don't direct things. In some respects, they're into the environment and they just sit back and absorb what is happening in that environment, completely absorb it. And pity the name now is not in my mind, but they have a very ethnographic approach to their work before they decide whatever intervention they will plan and how they will plan it, and so on and so forth. But on a personal level, I have to say I was aware of all these diamonds, but I never really engaged with any of them. So I don't know. Okay, we're having a general chat here. Now, I personally feel that an ethnographic approach as a first stage is a useful tool, if you like, to listen. Now, I don't know enough about the particular projects that were presented to us, but I am, in terms of the extent of the work that has been done here, I think it is remarkable, the extent of the work that has been done. So that's an interesting experience for me to take with me. I also inserted one other little graphic in the chart where, I liked what was commented on before in the first presentation by one of your colleagues. Public sector culture does not promote or reward innovation. Yeah. I had to laugh when I read that because I'm not Cypriot, but I work in Cyprus, and this is a small country. And the public sector culture here is fascinating. And I would argue that it has many similarities with what our friends in Chile are experiencing, a small country, over-bureaucratic. But nevertheless, rewarding innovation, well, let alone social innovation, okay? I mean, cutting through all those barriers is just an impossible task for a country that is sinking in bureaucracy. It's an impossible task. But nevertheless, these are my thoughts. So thank you for all that. And I did listen to Professor Ezio's comments too, which I found particularly interesting. I mean, the artificiality of creating a methodology. Now, okay, I don't know, again, a comment here, just a comment. We're sharing our experiences. Now, I came into DESIS from an educational background. So my primary interest here is education, the education of social design. This is our background. This is what we do as a lab. And, I found it difficult to walk in a class and say, okay, no methodology, I don't know, let's start from somewhere. So I have to teach them a model. I have to teach them a tool. They have to have a tool in their hands. Okay, now these are undergraduate students, you may argue, fine. But as an introductory way of getting them into design thinking, social change, social design, you have to start with a model, a preliminary model somehow. Now, it would be interesting to see how that translates to a bigger, talking about scaling up things. It would be interesting to see how that would, that model of teaching anyway would work at a postgraduate level and further. But nevertheless, these are thoughts for me, to puzzle about. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Nico. Very, very interesting. And I agree. I think it's also the debate between the modeling and the living or the experiencing is always a tension, I think, when you're in the midst of doing things. I think, I don't know how much time we have here, but every single comment so far, we could have a very interesting discussion, and probably we should.
I would like to ask a question. So your lab, you have a team, you do research. Do you involve your students, or you are just oriented towards like a research lab instead of having the didactics and the students involved in these projects that you have showed?
Most of our members are former students from the School of Design. Many of them did their final thesis with LEAP, and in many cases their issues became projects. That's something very particular. I hate all these terms, but sort of we accelerate, or we link the many of the thesis projects with those stakeholders that can make them work or have the power to make them work. I don't know if you want to say something else about that, Mariana. And
Yeah.
it's not only with designers, huh? We are having a student from different disciplines. That's the good things of being in a complex university.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we do. We feed, we receive so much from the different schools, especially from school design, but from many other schools. We are not full-on student focused, so we don't have 50 students running around. Yeah, but we tend to work with 1 or 2 at each semester. Yeah, with when they do something that they have to do that's called applied practice, and they do it with us. And as Jose said, some of those topics have scaled. Sarah, who's not here today, because she's at the hospital, she did her final thesis on hospital care, and then she joined our health project, and we've had other examples like that. But I think that is something that is it's a challenge for us. To understand how to better connect with students, how to better translate our experiences into material that can be used for teaching. That's something that we discuss, and we're trying to work on daily, because I don't think we've got it yet. and that would also be fantastic to know her experiences about it, because I think we still have a lot that could be done. But for example, we've had a very interesting and transformative experience. We just relaunched our website because we had a collaboration with another DESIS Lab, I think, Centro in Mexico. They're a DESIS Lab, right?
Yes.
And they will be hosting the next DESIS Cafe. Paulina
is here.
Paulina's here. Okay, so fantastic. So Paulina's going to know what I'm talking about. And Emilio Sosa, who's part of Centro, he approached us because he is a designer. His focus is on accessibility of digital web pages for people who have visual disability. And he said, well, I want to study the public sector accessibility in Chile, and I want you to help us. So we said, okay, let's do it. We have absolutely no expertise on Hola, Paulina. We have no expertise on the topic. I said, Emilio, we help you. You tell us what to do. And what happened was that at the same time, Dominique Damjanic, she's a student in the School of Design. She was the first completely visually impaired person to study design in Chile. I don't know if this has happened in other places in the world, but she's just completed or is in the process of submitting her final thesis for her degree. She was doing her practice with us. And so it was an incredible sort of, the stars aligned, and Emilio was coming with this topic. Dominic was working with us. And so we said, let's go do this. And Emilio was so happy because for the first time, he had someone who had studied design and was also a first-hand user of all this software, and they tested all these websites together. So I have to say that with benefit, and it was incredible. The results were very interesting. We're presenting them to the not the president, but the president's communication team on Friday. We're very excited. It had never happened to us before. And it's been incredible, the multiplying effect that working with other labs, but also with students can have. So we're definitely trying to sort of see how we can do more of that. It's not easy because we are self-funded. So we're always in the sort of looking for the project, looking for someone to fund it, looking for someone who's interested in scaling it, having all the conversations. And then, sometimes it's like, oh my God, when do I talk to the students? But every time we do it, we learn so much. So definitely something we need to put a little bit of head on, how to structure it better and how to do it sort of as a part of our core.
Dennis, I think we're on time, or is that right?
Yeah, we are on time. We can go.
I just want to say something. I'm so glad I don't have to present my thesis again to Professor Mancini.
It seems that Cassie was a bad guy, and he was not.
No, he was not. No, at all. No, but at this time, I wouldn't be able to do it. God.
So anyway.
No, I just want.
Do you
one
want to
thing,
say something in your defense?
No, in our defense, no, regarding this this sentence, very polemic. Believe me or trust in me. I think there is something there hidden, and it has to do with the role of universities in nowadays trust crisis. Seriously, it is happening in Chile a lot, probably in extreme way. It will probably happen everywhere, but there is a huge mistrust in institutions and in public institutions. And we put all the worst things or responsibility in our bureaucracy, structure, etc. But university has a lot to do there. And believe us, we have found heroes within the public institution. There are a lot of people there that really are trying to do their best within their limitations. And most of them are really trying to improve the quality of life of citizens. And perhaps through this laboratory, we have been able to really also support them, content. I mean, even emotionally. I mean, there are people that really know how are the problems. They know that they cannot resolve everything, and they know how people or citizens are suffering while they're trying to receive a service they're providing. And they trust in universities. And I think most of our DESIS labs are within educational institutions that still have some reputation or trust within the community. So I think that they also trust in us. And we have been in project with 3 different governments, with 3 different presidents, with 3 different ministers from different colors. And we still are the ones who are supporting those people who are in those governmental institutions, those technicals who are there working and trying to resolve issues.
Yeah, and Jose, following what you were saying, 8 years ago, we had a project with municipalities that wanted to train their employees to be aware of the bottom-up movements from the citizens and to prepare them to welcome when they go to public services and ask for something, because most of these employees, these technicians that are in the public service, they are not prepared for this kind of spontaneous or bottom-up initiatives, and usually they close the doors in the in the entrance seats where the public goes to the institution. So it was really an interesting project.
So sometimes we have become an instrument for those who work on the public service to raise the issue into other levels. So that's what I wanted to say.
Halitza, do you want to say something? Halitza, it's here. I don't know. You were talking about trust.
Hi. Yes. Hi, everyone. Yes, I wanted to say that the issue of trust is actually everywhere. And sometimes you find that when you are from the public institutions also going to work in another one, they normally would have to work a lot. You need to get that person that will really allow the trust to happen. Otherwise, then nothing happens, because they always are also not prepared, like you said, the workers to go through all that, and they wonder what about their time? They have things to do, all of that. So sometimes it's designed such that they know that that extra time they also spend there is also catered for as part of their work and contributions for growth. And then that one, they also find it as a meaningful engagement more than when we also come in and work with them sometimes they feel that, oh, we are in to take advantage, and we always come and they don't really see what we are doing, you know. So the issue of trust, I think it's really something that it's very key. And once that is overcome, then it makes it easier for the other, the projects to continue. Yeah. So that's what I wanted to talk about. Hi, Ezio.
Oh, are we going to, we are going to finish, Teresa? Are we near to end?
Yeah, we have like 10 minutes more or less.
No, because I don't want to say the final words as it was the final words. And sorry if I've been a little bit too energetic before, but as I told you, I was just reading something like this and was trying to make my mind. In any case, to go back to this issue about trust, I think that we all understand that trust is a very important kind of relationship in between people for in all the society, and in particular for us. Now, if the issue is the trust in between the institution and the people, we should help in regenerating this trust. So one of the main challenge, the real challenge, is if and how we can help in recreating this kind of trust. And how we can do it, in my view, using our capability in the different nodes where the process happens. So all my discussion was, if we talk as Nikos was saying, in a class, we create a class is by definition a kind of artificial environment in which you make some experience. So you can make the experience from the beginning, ethnographic research, and afterward defining the problems, and after opening different solutions, and afterward blah, blah, blah. But the reality do not go in that way. And we all know that the reality do not go in. So we need to use that double diamond if we are teaching, and this can happen in the school, or in my view, it can happen in a very positive way, also in the real life with the institutions, when they create a kind of, I call it artificial, inverted comma, environment in which many people goes together, they start to make a discussion, this open sky definition of concept, etc., etc. And it could be very useful but we have to understand that this is a very special situation. Normally, it's not like this. And therefore, what we have to do to make us trust, in my view, we make us trust because we do something that is useful. So all my only problem was, if you say you should, maybe now I'm saying something that was not what Mariana was saying, but we say you have to believe us, because we have a method that permits to arrive to some solution, as the engineer do. And they have also right to do. I am capable to make some calculation, and I can tell you how this bridge has to be done. And you have to believe me, because you are not capable to make the calculation that we are doing. And therefore, the engineer is trusted because it's supposed that all this techno-scientific knowledge give the kind of assumption. It's not our case. So we cannot say you have to believe us in the result because we have the method. You have to work with us because we are capable to bring not only tools, but also ideas. And it's in the moment in which people, our interlocutor, recognize that the tools that we bring and the capability that we have and the ideas that we bring in the conversation are useful, we will be recognized and we will be trusted. So I think that going back to the example that has been done by Mariana before, when those people from the institution saw this representation of the journey or the complexity of the longer journey of experience that people have to do to arrive to a certain service, they have not to, in abstract, trust you or not. You make visible something that was in the reality, but if you don't have, and in my view, to realize in that moment that that kind of representation is useful, this is our project. So we have not to imagine that the project is only when we arrive to the end, that we never have an end at the end. It's an open end. But in any case, there is a very strong idea in our mind that we design simple mechanical products. And so the simple mechanical products more or less follow that way of designing. And at the end, you have the final product. But if you work with the institutions, you never have the final product. It's always something that can be rediscussed. And therefore, every element, so if you say, we are designing the representation of the journey of experience, this is your design in that moment. You have not to wait for something else. Of course, you can hope that it will be useful, but you are doing that. If we do help in making a prototype, the prototype is a very strong tool that designers are capable to do because they can imagine how in a very simple way to make something happen. The prototype today as a value per se is not simply one step, and the prototype, if you don't do the final product, do not work, because the prototype could be very helpful to make people clear something that was very complex, and to make understandable and to permit to learn from this experience. So what I want to say that the process is split in many different condition, moment, and we can bring some contribution. And we are designer in the way in which you are a graphic designer or a communication or an information designer in the moment in which you design the second example that you did with that one with the kids. You are a designer in the moment in which you represent that one. So you are designer in that moment. It's not that you are not yet enough designer because you have to do the remaining part. Because maybe the remaining part will be done by other people in another moment with other designers, not you. Maybe you could be an agency specialized. For instance, we have agencies specialized in representation of a complex system. And we have friends that are doing this kind, maybe also Jose is one of those. If I remember, at least it was one of those. And this is your work. You are not necessarily one point that is related in a linear way to all the other. You are designer in the moment in which, in that moment, you make visible something that was not visible. This was my issue about trust. And if you do like this progressively, you create trust. The way to create trust, there is no way to create trust if not collaborating something, recognizing also in terms of a human relationship that we are trustable because we promise something that we are capable to do. And so we have to promise something that we are capable to do. Sorry, again, everybody's terrified. And now Jose said, I would like not to hurt. Okay, so I stop here. So take it soft and light.
We're since next year we turn 10 years. I think Ezio, everything you've said is very, very, very useful, very interesting for us, because as I've said before, we're terrible at showcasing what we do. It's one of our main difficulties. And we are at the moment trying to think on how to package, how to make it tangible, everything we've learned and everything that has happened to us in the last 10 years, which has been a professional and personal discovery. I didn't even know there existed designers when I started working at LIB. That's how much has changed. And so we will take upon your words, because they're very, very useful to us to reflect upon what we do and how to also communicate it and think about it to others. So thank you very much. Thank you, Nico, Ezio, and Realitza, who's already left. But oh no, Realitza, you're there. You just changed place in the screen. Sorry. Realitza, for your comments. They're very, very useful to us. And as I said, I left my email address and also the LIB email address. And we would love to hear about you if you're working on things that are similar, or if you have something to share or teach us. We would be very, very, very thankful, because this type of conversation opens our minds as well. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah, and I would like to close thanking Mariana, Jose, and the LEAP UC team for your amazing presentation and for letting us know the projects you are developing in your lab. And I want to invite you to save the date for the next DESIS Café that I have told you that it will be hosted by Paulina in the Social Design Hub in Mexico. So we are going from south to north. So the next one, it will be on the 15th of June. And then for the north, we will have our summer break, but we will return in September with DESIS Café hosted by Emily Carr, DESIS Lab in Vancouver in Canada. So we are really going from south to north. It will be on the 21st of September. So next one, Mexico, the other one, Canada, and then we will see if someone will step forward to host other DESIS Café. And I hope to see you all in the next one so we can continue this, this chat. And thank you very much for sharing this and for all the other people that attended.
Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias.
Chao, gracias a
Thank
todos.
you very much. See you next café.
Goodbye.
Adiós.
Chao a todos. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.